Hello, good evening all. Today I am going to present a topic related to chromatography. The term chromatography is derived from the Greek word that is chroma meaning the color and the graphene meaning to write or the writing. So it is basically a modern methods of food analysis and in which the separation is done on the basis of partial differences between the mobile phase and the stationary phase, and it is basically defined as the chromatography is a physical method of separation in which the components can be separated as distributed between the two phases. The one phase is stationary phase and another phase is the mobile phase, and the mobile phase which moves in a definite direction over the stationary phase. Okay. So, some terms related to the chromatography are that is solvent. Solvent is what? The chemicals reagent used to dissolve the substances is known as solvent. One another term is solute, and the solute is related to the substances that is dissolved in the solvent. The other two words that is related to the chromatography is stationary phase and the mobile phase. Basically, the stationary phase is a porous solid matrix through which the sample contained in a mobile phase which travels over it. And the another one is the mobile phase. Mobile phase means a solvent that is used for the separation of substances, and it moves over the stationary phase, and it can be either the liquid or the gas. So these are the basic terms that is related to the chromatography. So basically, the various constituents of mixtures travel at different speeds, causing them to separate. And it is the basic principle of the chromatography, in which the samples, in the substances present in a samples, is separated on the basis of differential partition between the mobile phase and the stationary phase. Now come to the historical part of the chromatography. Chromatography literally meaning, as I told earlier, that is the color writing, and that was first employed by the Russian scientist Mikhail Tesvit in 19th century, and he basically examined the various plant pigments such as the chlorophyll, carotenoids, and xanthophylls. Since this color compound have a since these pigments have a different colors, so on the basis of these colors, the term chromatography was coined. Now come to the principles of chromatography. As I told that the two phases are come under the chromatography. The one phase is the mobile phase and the other one is stationary phase. So the mobile phase refers to the mixture of substances to be dissolved, to be separated, dissolved in a liquid or the gas. So it is a either liquid or the gaseous materials that are used in the mobile phase, and another one is stationary phase. So stationary phase is what? It is like a silica gel or the other substances that are used for the separation of components in a mixture. So the stationary phase is basically a porous solid matrix through which the sample contained in a mobile phase percolates. So that there is an interaction between these two phases, the mobile phase and the stationary phase, and these phases, the interaction between these phases are results in the separation of compound from the mixtures. So the basic principle of the chromatography is partition coefficient, and with partition coefficient means the interaction between the, as I told that the interaction between the mobile phase and the stationary phase results in the separation of the compound from the mixtures. So these are the basic principles of the chromatography. Now come to the application part. So the chromatography techniques is used for the separation of amino acids from a mixture of compounds, various types of proteins, and the carbohydrates from a sample. It is also used for the analysis of drugs, hormones, and vitamins. Various types of fat soluble and water soluble vitamins are examined through the different types of chromatography. It is also helpful in the qualitative as well as quantitative analysis of mixtures of compounds, and it is this technique is also useful for the determination of molecular weight of the proteins. So on the basis of weight of the protein molecule, the various types of proteins are separated, identified, and purified. Okay. So now come to the types of the chromatography. So chromatography are classified on the basis of the mobile phase, such as the gas chromatography, in which the gas is used as a mobile phase. Another one is liquid chromatography, in which the liquid, the liquid material or the liquid mobile phase is used for the separation of the particles. And another one is supercritical fluid chromatography, in which supercritical fluids are used. So so these are the following types of chromatography. And the term, the paper chromatography and the thin layer chromatography, these are the chromatography techniques that comes in the planar chromatography. So planar chromatography is what, in which the stationary phase is the either the cellulose paper or the simple Whatman paper are used for the separation of the molecules. And in which simple plain paper, so simple plain paper are used. The another term is the thin layer chromatography. Thin layer chromatography, the short form of thin layer chromatography is TLC. And in TLC, basically the silica gel are used as a thin layer over the glass or the steel or the other metal ions, on which the thin layer of silica gel are placed, and these techniques are used for the separation of the substances. So planar in paper chromatography and thin layer chromatography, these are come under the planar chromatography techniques. So the another chromatography techniques are the gel chromatography or the column chromatography. The gel chromatography, in which the gel is used for the separation of the particles, and the column chromatography, the particular columns are different size and shapes, and different materials of columns are available in the market for the separation of the different substances. Last another one chromatography is ion exchange chromatography. So in ion exchange chromatography, basically the on the basis of the charge, anion and cation present on the different substances, the basically the positive charge or the negative charge placed on the different substances. uh, so this technique is particularly used for the particles where these particles containing the different ions, either it is a positive ion or the negative ions. So on the basis of this ion exchange chromatography, different types of amino acids are separated, because you all know that the proteins have a different ions, and they act as a buffer they act as a buffer in the solution. So these proteins and amino acids have a different ions, either they containing the positive or the negative ions. So this type of chromatography is basically used for the separation of amino acids as well as the protein molecules in its substances. Another one is gel filtration chromatography, in which the different gels are used for the separation of the particles. Then now come to the gas liquid chromatography, that is also known as GLC, in which the gas is used as a mobile phase, and the liquid is containing liquid, either the organic solvent or the mixture of aqueous and other organic solvents are used as a stationary phase. Another one is affinity chromatography. In affinity chromatography, the different substances have different affinity for the stationary phase, and on the basis of their affinity, the separation can be done. So these all are the types of the chromatography. So paper chromatography, this paper chromatography is a basically it is a technique, comes under the planar chromatography. And in these techniques, uh, this technique is defined as in which the analysis of unknown substance is carried out mainly by the flow of solvent on specially designed filter paper. So in this chromatography, a cellulose paper or the different Whatman papers are used as a stationary phase for the identification, for the separation, and for the purification of mixtures of substances. So in paper chromatography, generally we use the paper, either it is a cellulose paper or the any type of paper or Whatman paper, number 1 2 3 4 5, and any number, uh, uh, the total numbers of 1 to 20. So in which on this only any one of the paper is used for the separation of the molecules or the substances. So in paper chromatography basically, a dot is placed, simple, a dot or the line is placed on the paper, and the sample is and this paper is placed in the beaker containing the different solutions. So this paper is known as a chromatography paper, and the paper is placed in a jar containing shallow layer of solvents and sealed. And as the solvent rises through the paper, it meets the different mixtures and will start to travel up the paper with the solvent. So basically, in paper chromatography, it is a very simplest and most widely used technique of the chromatography, and the separation and the identification and the quantifications of different organic or inorganic components are done through these techniques. And it is very simple techniques in which a simple dot or the small dot is marked or the placed on a sample solution onto the strip of the chromatography paper. So here you can see that the image in which you see that this is a paper is used. So it is either cellulose acetate paper or the Whatman paper is used, and simple ink dot is placed just above the sample the solution, just about the 2 centimeter above the solutions containing the water or the organic solvent that are used for the separation of the mixture of substances. And this water or the organic solvent are the mobile phase, and the paper used in these techniques are the stationary phase. So paper is a stationary phase, and water or the other organic solvents are the mobile phase. So the paper is placed in the beaker which was sealed through the pin on piece of wood, and the beaker containing the solution, either it is a water or the organic solvent, and the sample containing different mixtures of the components are placed as a dot or the line just above the 2 centimeter of the solvent containing beaker. So when this paper is placed in the solution, through the capillary action the water or the organic solvents moves upward direction. So in this image you can see that dot this dot containing the different solutions, or the dot containing the different components, moves or travel upward direction along with the mobile phase. So mobile phase move or travel uh, through the capillary action of the mobile phase. So on these basis, the sample containing the solutions, the sample containing the mixtures of sample containing this but containing in this spot travel through the capillary actions. And in this image you can also see that the sample, the spot traveled around upward direction, travel through upward direction through the action of the capillary actions, huh? So here you can see that the dot moves, the dot or the sample traveled around 2.5 centimeter. So its new position of the sample is around 2.5 centimeter, just above the uh, spot where you placed earlier. And the mobile phase containing the water or the another organic solvents travel along with the whole paper, so its distance around 5 centimeter. Here you can see that there. So in this type of chromatography, basically we calculate the RF value, and RF value helps for the identification of unknown sample. So RF value is what? It is a distance traveled by the substance divided by the distance traveled by the solvent front. So solvent, either the aqueous solution or the organic solvents, travels. So the distance traveled by the mobile phase, and the distance traveled by the substance or the sample. So this, it is a basically the ratio between these basically between the distance traveled by the substances and the distance traveled by the solvent form. So this RF value is helps to identify for help for the identification of the unknown sample. So this is all about the paper chromatography. And it is in paper chromatography. Basically there are three types of paper chromatography. The one is ascending chromatography, the second one is descending paper chromatography, and the third one is circular paper chromatography. So we will discuss these all these techniques in the next session. So goodbye all.